In the grim darkness of the far future, there are countless ways to die. You might be consumed by tyranids, corrupted by chaos, incinerated by Necron Gauss weaponry, or simply ground beneath the boots of the Imperium's endless wars. But among all the terrible fates that await humanity in the 41st millennium, there exists one that is peculiarly, horrifyingly unique. It is the fate of being noticed by the Orks. Not as prey to be slaughtered and forgotten, not as weak flesh to be trampled underfoot, but as something far more dangerous to your long-term survival, as entertainment. Imagine, if you will, that you have caught the attention of the galaxy's most enthusiastic killers. Creatures who exist only for war, who breathe violence like others breathe air, who find joy in nothing but the thunder of guns and the crash of blades. Now imagine that instead of simply killing you and moving on to their next target, they have decided that you are worth keeping alive, that fighting you brings them genuine pleasure, that you have become, in their crude and brutal way, fun. This is not a blessing. This is not an honor, despite what some might claim. This is a sentence more terrible than death, because it means you will never know peace again. The Orks will hunt you across worlds. They will seek you out specifically, passing by easier targets just for the chance to fight you one more time. They will capture you alive if possible, preserving you for future entertainment. And worst of all, they will talk about you. Your name will spread through the Wah, becoming legend among creatures who barely remember their own yesterday. You will become a permanent fixture in their violent universe, a prized opponent to be fought again and again, until either you fall or they find someone more entertaining. This is the story of what happens when Orks think you are fun. It is a story written in blood and fire, in laughter and violence, in the strange and terrible respect that these fungal monstrosities reserve for their most valued enemies. It is a story that has played out across thousands of worlds, claiming heroes and breaking legends, creating myths that even the Orks themselves barely understand. And it begins, as so many Ork stories do, with understanding what makes these creatures tick in the first place. The Orks are not like other races. They do not fight out of necessity, or for resources, or to defend their homes. They do not wage war with reluctance or view combat as a last resort. For the Orks, violence is not a means to an end. Violence is the end itself. They are a species engineered by the ancient Old Ones millions of years ago, created as living weapons in a war that has long since ended. But the war that made them may have concluded, yet the Orks themselves persist, carrying their programming forward through the millennia like a biological echo that refuses to fade. Every Ork is born knowing how to fight. They emerge from the fungal spores that carpet their settlements, already understanding the basics of combat, of weapons, of warfare. A newborn Ork boy knows instinctively how to grip a chopper, how to aim a slugger, how to charge screaming into battle without a moment's hesitation. This is not learned behavior. This is genetic memory, hardwired into their very being by creators who needed soldiers that required no training, no drilling, no complex logistics. The Old Ones built the perfect warrior species, and in doing so, they created something that would outlast every empire that has risen and fallen since. But the Orks are more than just warriors. They are warriors who love what they do. This distinction is critical to understanding why some enemies become entertainment rather than casualties. A human soldier might fight with discipline and courage, but they fight because they must. A space marine might charge into battle with righteous fury, but that fury is channeled toward a purpose, toward defending the Imperium and serving the Emperor. Even Chaos Marines, corrupted and twisted as they are, fight for something beyond the fight itself, seeking the favor of their dark gods or the fulfillment of some twisted ambition. Orks fight because fighting makes them happy. Pure, simple, uncomplicated joy radiates from an Ork in combat. They laugh as they charge. They grin as their enemies fire upon them. They bellow with delight when someone finally lands a good hit, because that means the fight is getting better. An orc does not seek victory in the traditional sense. Oh, they certainly want to win, to crump their enemies and stand triumphant over their broken bodies. But the winning is almost secondary to the fighting itself. A quick, easy victory over a weak opponent brings an orc no satisfaction. It is the struggle, the challenge, the back and forth of combat that they crave. This creates a psychology utterly alien to most other species. When an orc encounters an enemy who fights well, who pushes them to their limits, who makes them work for their victory, something interesting happens in their primitive but cunning mind. They recognize that this enemy is valuable, not valuable in terms of resources or strategic importance, but valuable as a source of entertainment, as a way to experience the purest joy they know, which is the joy of a proper scrap. The orcs have a word for such enemies, though its exact translation varies. Some call it scumgrod, a term that outsiders might translate as friend, but which really means something closer to favorite enemy or worthy opponent. It describes someone that an orc respects enough to not kill immediately, because killing them would mean the end of future entertainment. It is the closest thing to affection that an orc can feel for someone who is not another orc, and it is one of the most dangerous designations you can receive in the galaxy. When you become scumgrod, when you become fun, the rules change. Suddenly you are not just another target in the orcs' eternal war. You are a prize, a treasure, something to be sought out and fought repeatedly. And the orcs will go to extraordinary lengths to ensure that their favorite enemies survive to fight another day, because dead enemies do not provide entertainment tomorrow. To understand what this means in practice, we must look at the most famous example of orc affection in the entire history of the Imperium. We must examine the relationship between the mightiest warlord the orcs have produced in the modern era and the one human who earned not just his respect, but something approaching what a human might mistake for friendship. We must look at Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka and Commissar Sebastian Yarrick. The Second War for Armageddon began like so many orc invasions, with a massive space hulk tearing through the void and disgorging countless greenskins onto an unsuspecting Imperial world. But this was no ordinary war. It was led by Gazkul Thraka, an orc touched by what he believed to be the gods themselves, a warlord of uncommon cunning who combined the brutal strength of his species with a strategic mind that rivaled human generals. He had come to Armageddon with a purpose, with a vision, with the kind of focused intent that orcs rarely displayed. The planet's defenses crumbled before the green tide. City after city fell as the incompetent leadership of planetary governor Hermann von Straub failed to mount any meaningful resistance. The orcs swept southward across Armageddon's surface, an unstoppable tsunami of violence and destruction that seemed destined to claim the entire world, until they reached Hades' hive. At Hades' hive, the orcs encountered something they had not expected. Resistance. Real, genuine, unbreakable resistance. Commissar Sebastian Yarrick commanded the defenders, and under his leadership, the Imperial forces fought with a desperation and ferocity that matched the orcs' own enthusiasm for battle. Yarrick did not simply defend, he inspired. He moved through the battle lines like a living icon of Imperial will, executing cowards and rallying the brave, making his soldiers believe that victory was possible, even as the situation grew more desperate by the hour. The orcs loved it. Here, finally, was opposition worth fighting. Here was an enemy who did not break, who did not flee, who stood firm even as thousands of greenskins crashed against their defenses like waves against a cliff. The fighting around Hades' hive became legendary among both sides. Orc war bosses threw themselves into the battle personally, seeking glory and a good death. Imperial soldiers discovered reserves of courage they did not know they possessed, fighting on when ammunition ran low, when reinforcements failed to arrive, when all hope seemed lost. And at the center of it all stood Yarrick. The orcs began to notice him specifically. This small human in his black coat and peaked cap, moving through the carnage with mechanical precision, his bionic eye glowing red as he picked out targets. The stories began to spread through the orc camps. The Humies had a boss, a proper boss, one who shot his own boys when they tried to run. One who wore black with red trim, the colors of the Goth clan. One who fought with a fury that even the boys could respect. Ghazghkull himself took note. In the entire campaign, across all the worlds he had conquered and all the enemies he had crushed, this was the first opponent who truly interested him. This Yarrick, this Humie boss, was making the Wah work for its victory. More than that, he was making it fun. The strategic back and forth, the clever tactics, the sheer stubborn refusal to surrender, even when defeat seemed certain. This was the kind of fight Ghazghkull lived for. He ordered his most powerful war boss, Uglhard, to crush the Humie boss personally. The massive Ork led a devastating assault on Hades' hive's outer defenses, and when Yarrick met him in single combat, the Commissar was nearly killed. Uglhard's power claw severed Yarrick's right arm in a single savage strike, a wound that would have killed most humans. But Yarrick did not fall. He did not retreat. Instead, with his life bleeding out onto the hive floor, he swung his chainsword and decapitated the Ork warboss. Then, as his soldiers watched in awe, and the Orks watched in something like shock, Yarrick picked up Uglhard's fallen power claw and held it aloft as a trophy before allowing himself to lose consciousness. That image burned itself into Ork memory. The Humie boss, one-armed and dying, holding the claw of the warboss he had just killed. The Orks that witnessed it fled in terror, while others spread the tale throughout the War. Yarrick became legendary. He became something more than just another enemy commander. He became entertainment. He became interesting. He became, in the Ork way of thinking, fun. Ghazghkull himself eventually joined the assault on Hades' hive, leading from the front as any proper warlord should. The two commanders met in the chaos of battle, and their duel was everything an Ork could hope for. Ghazghkull, towering and terrible, wrapped in crude armor and wielding weapons that could pulverize a tank. Yarrick, small by comparison but unyielding, his bionic eye blazing, the power claw he had taken from Uglhard now grafted to his arm. They fought, and Ghazghkull left Yarrick for dead, nearly succeeding where Uglhard had failed. But Yarrick survived. He bought enough time for the hive's population to evacuate. His defense of Hades' hive became the turning point of the entire war because it gave the Imperium time to respond, to send reinforcements, to bring in the Space Marines who would ultimately drive the Orks from Armageddon's surface. The Second War ended in tactical defeat for Ghazghkull, but it also gave him something he valued far more than conquest. It gave him Yarrick. The warlord spoke of the Commissar with something approaching reverence. Among all, his foes, Yarrick was the only one he ever cursed, which among Orks is the highest praise. Here was an enemy who understood war, who embraced it as fully as any Ork. Here was someone who could challenge Ghazghkull's tactical genius, who made victory something to be earned rather than simply taken. In the years that followed, Ghazghkull would prove just how much he valued his favorite enemy. After the Second War, Yarrick retired, but he could not stay away from the hunt. He assembled a massive crusade, gathering ships and soldiers, determined to track down Ghazghkull and end the Ork threat once and for all. The Imperium supported him, believing that the old warrior's experience made him uniquely qualified to hunt the prophet of the War. They tracked Ghazghkull across the galaxy, following the trail of destruction his warband left in its wake, drawing ever closer to their target. On the world of Golgotha, they finally cornered him. The Imperial forces landed with confidence, certain that they had trapped the Ork warlord with overwhelming force. It was a trap. The entire planet was a trap. Ghazghkull had known they were coming. He had prepared for them. And in the devastating ambush that followed, the Imperial crusade was shattered. Thousands died. Ships were destroyed or captured. High-ranking commanders were taken prisoner, including Yarrick. The Commissar awoke in chains, surrounded by Orks, expecting execution or perhaps torture. Instead, he was brought before Ghazghkull himself. And there, in a moment, that would be recorded in Imperial records as one of the strangest encounters in the history of the Imperium. The Ork warlord explained his plan. He told Yarrick that he was going to return to Armageddon, that he was going to launch an even greater "Wah!" against the world where they first met, and that he wanted Yarrick to lead the defense. Ghazghkull released him, not out of mercy, not out of tactical calculation, but because the warlord wanted to fight Yarrick again. He wanted the challenge, the struggle, the joy of matching wits and weapons with his favorite enemy. Killing Yarrick now would end the entertainment, setting him free, giving him time to prepare, ensuring that he would be waiting when the Wah returned. That would create the best fight possible. The Third War for Armageddon began as Ghazghkull promised. The Orks returned in even greater numbers, and Yarrick was there to meet them, having spent the intervening years preparing the planet's defenses. The war that followed lasted for years, a grinding conflict of attrition that saw entire hive cities reduced to rubble. Ghazghkull personally destroyed Hades' hive from orbit, the very place where their rivalry began, not out of spite, but as a challenge. As if to say, let us begin again on equal footing. Throughout the war, Ghazghkull's tactics showed a peculiar consideration for his favorite foe. He did not try to simply overwhelm Yarrick with numbers. He did not send assassins or employ strategies designed to eliminate the Commissar quickly. Instead, he fought as if conducting some vast game, testing Yarrick's responses, enjoying the strategic dance of thrust and counter-thrust. When other Ork warlords suggested simply crushing the Humi boss, Ghazghkull would grow angry. Yarrick was his fight. Yarrick was special. Eventually, Ghazghkull grew bored with the stalemate on Armageddon and left to pursue a greater vision, one given to him by what he believed to be Gork and Mork themselves. Yarrick pursued, joining forces with the Black Templar's Space Marines, hunting the Ork warlord across the stars. They cornered him in the Haunted Gulf, surrounded his flagship with overwhelming force, prepared to board and end the threat once and for all. And Ghazghkull, through the power of his weird boys, simply disappeared in a flash of green energy, escaping to continue his great work. Their rivalry continues to this day, or at least it did until recent reports suggested Yarrick's death, though even these remain unconfirmed. But whether Yarrick lives or has finally fallen, his story illustrates perfectly what it means to be fun to the Orks. He became legendary among them. He earned a form of respect and even strange affection from creatures who understood neither concept in any conventional sense. He was spared death multiple times, not out of mercy, but because he was too valuable to waste. And he spent the last decades of his life never knowing peace, always hunted, always pursued, always fighting, because the Orks would not let him rest. This is what happens when you become entertaining. This is what it means to be Scumgrod. And Yarrick is not the only example, merely the most famous. The phenomenon extends to others who have earned the dubious honor of Ork appreciation, each discovering in their own way that being valued by greenskins is a curse dressed in the clothing of respect. But to truly understand the depths of this strange relationship, we must look at an even more extreme example. We must examine what happened when an Ork became so entertaining that even a Chaos God took notice. We must turn our attention to Tusker Demon Killer, and the most successful Ork in the entire history of the species. Tusker was a war boss like many others, leading his Wah across the galaxy in search of good fights and better enemies. He commanded a space hulk called Gorjaw, and he was respected among his boys for his strength and cunning. But Tusker became truly legendary when a many-headed greater demon infiltrated his ship and began slaughtering his crew. Where another warlord might have fled or sealed off the infected sections, Tusker did what any proper Ork would do. He grabbed his power claw and ran toward the sounds of battle, bellowing his war cry. The fight between Ork and demon was titanic. The bridge of Gorjaw became an abattoir as the two monsters tore at each other with inhuman fury. But when the battle ended, Tusker stood, victorious, adding the demon's horns to his trophy rack. And in that moment of triumph, Covered in demonic ichor and surrounded by the cheering of his surviving boys, Tusker had a revelation. Demons were fun to fight. Not just fun, they were the most entertaining opponents he had ever encountered. Bigger than most enemies, stronger than most foes, impossible to predict, and utterly dedicated to violence. Fighting them brought Tusker a joy he had rarely experienced, even by Orc standards. So he made a decision that seemed completely insane to everyone except the Orcs who followed him. He was going to invade the Eye of Terror and fight more demons. Tusker gathered every weird boy he could find and forced them to work together, using their combined psychic power to navigate the impossible currents around Cadia and plunge directly into the Eye of Terror itself. An Orc Wag, deliberately invading the heart of chaos space, seeking not conquest or plunder, but simply the chance to fight demons. It was magnificent. It was stupid. It was the most orky thing imaginable. And it worked. Tusker's Wag rampaged through the Eye of Terror, attacking demon worlds dedicated to all 4 chaos gods. They fought the plague bearers of Nurgle, the twisted warriors of Slaanesh, the scheming demons of Tzeentch, and most of all, the bloodthirsty hordes of Khorne. World after world fell before the demon killer and his boys, and the legend of their rampage spread even among the entities of the Warp. Here were mortals who fought demons not out of desperation or duty, but because they enjoyed it. Khorne, the blood god, the embodiment of war and violence itself, took notice. Here were creatures after his own heart, beings who understood that battle was its own reward. They fought with a purity of purpose that even his own demons could not match, seeking no corruption, no reward, no advantage beyond the fight itself. They were perfect. Tusker's rampage continued until his Wah crash-landed on a demon world literally composed of blood and flesh. When the Orcs landed and found no enemies waiting, they began shooting at the ground itself out of frustration. The ground responded. Blood letters erupted from the surface by the thousands, and leading them was the Blood Prince, a demon prince of Khorne who ruled this world. The battle that followed was everything both sides could have wanted. Orcs and demons clashed in a storm of violence that painted the Blood World in even darker shades of crimson. Tusker and the Blood Prince dueled personally, the Warlord and the Demon trading blows that would have killed lesser beings, neither giving ground, both reveling in the combat. For hours, they fought as their armies destroyed each other around them, and slowly, inevitably, the Orcs began to fall. The demons were in their own realm, empowered by the Warp itself, and even Orc tenacity had its limits. The Blood Prince wounded Tusker grievously, bringing the Warlord to his knees. The demons stood over him, ready to deliver the killing blow, proclaiming victory over the invaders who dared attack his domain. But Tusker's weird boys, with their last strength, managed to distract the demon for just a moment. And in that moment, Tusker drove his power claw into the most vulnerable part of the Blood Prince's anatomy, right between the legs, and tore upward. The demon prince fell, defeated by an Orc who refused to die quietly. But Tusker did die. His wounds were too severe, even for Orc physiology. One by one, his remaining boys fell to the demon hordes, fighting to the last, never surrendering, never showing fear. The Wah of Tusker Demon Killer ended there, on that blood world, with every Orc slain and the Blood Prince's minions victorious. Except it did not end. The Blood Prince had enjoyed the battle too much. The sheer spectacle of violence, the joy both sides took in the combat, the perfect distillation of everything Khorne valued. It was too good to let end. The Demon Prince reported to his god about the magnificent fight, and Khorne, in his domain beyond reality, looked upon what had happened and made a decision. The Orcs had been entertaining. They deserved an encore. When dawn came to the Blood World, if such a place can be said to have dawn, the Orcs rose again. Every single one of them, including Tusker, restored to life by the will of the Blood God himself. They awoke on the battlefield, surrounded by demons, and did what came naturally. They started fighting again, and when they died, they would rise the next day to fight once more. An eternal cycle of battle, death, and resurrection, playing out in the shadow of Horn's brass citadel. To any other species, this would be the most horrific fate imaginable. An eternity of dying, of experiencing the agony of fatal wounds over and over, never knowing peace, never finding rest. A hell of endless violence with no purpose and no escape. But to Tusker Demon Killer and his boys, they were having the time of their lives, or rather, the time of their eternities. This was the best fight that never ended. Every day brought new battles against Horn's elite bloodletter generals, the absolute finest warriors the blood god could field. The combat was always challenging, always engaging, always fun. Tusker had achieved what every orc dreams of but few ever find, a proper, eternal scrap. He was so entertaining that a chaos god himself decided to keep him around permanently, because even Horn enjoyed watching the show. Some say that Tusker and his boys have been fighting in Horn's realm for so long now that they must have grown to enormous size. Orcs get bigger the more they fight, and these orcs have been fighting continuously for subjective centuries, perhaps longer given the time-distorting properties of the warp. If they ever escaped, if Khorne ever released them back into real space, they might well be the size of Imperial Knights or larger. But why would Khorne release? His favorite entertainment? And why would Tusker leave when he is exactly where he wants to be? The story of Tusker Demon Killer represents the absolute pinnacle of being fun to an entity that values violence. He was not just spared or pursued or valued. He was made immortal so that the fighting could continue forever. He achieved something that no other being in Warhammer 40,000 has managed: an unequivocally happy ending. In a universe of endless darkness and eternal suffering, Tusker found his perfect paradise, and it is a paradise of eternal bloodshed. But what exactly makes someone fun to the Orcs? What qualities separate those who become valued entertainment from those who are simply trampled beneath orc boots and forgotten? The answer is complex, because Orcs themselves are more complex than they first appear. Behind the brutal exterior and simple language lies a psychology shaped by millions of years of genetic engineering and an entire culture built around concepts that other species barely understand. First and foremost, you must fight well. This seems obvious, but the definition of fighting well in orc terms is specific. It does not simply mean killing many orcs, though that certainly helps establish credentials. It means fighting with enthusiasm, with courage, with a willingness to meet the orcs on their own terms. Running away, hiding behind fortifications, using long-range weapons exclusively. These tactics mark you as cowardly and boring. The orcs want close combat. They want to see the whites of your eyes as blades clash and bullets fly. They want to know that you are in the fight, truly in it, rather than trying to avoid it. Yarrick understood this instinctively. He did not cower in command bunkers. He was on the front lines, visible, fighting alongside his soldiers. When he lost his arm to an orc power claw, he did not retreat for recovery. He killed his attacker, took the claw as a trophy, and had it grafted to his own body. That is exactly the kind of thing an orc would do, and they recognized and respected it. He fought like they fought, brutally, personally, without hesitation. Second, you must never surrender. This is critical. Orcs have little concept of mercy, and they view surrender as the ultimate act of cowardice. An enemy who yields, who begs for life, who tries to negotiate their way out of combat. Such an enemy is worthless. They might be enslaved, worked to death in orc mines and workshops, or simply killed out of hand. But they will never be respected. Fun enemies fight to the last, even when death is certain. They face impossible odds without flinching. They charge when others would flee. This refusal to break, this stubborn determination to keep fighting no matter what, strikes a chord deep in the orc psyche. The death cause of Krieg exemplifies this quality. These grim soldiers of the Imperial Guard never retreat, never surrender, never show fear. They advance into gunfire with mechanical precision, treating their own deaths as acceptable casualties in the Emperor's name. To a human observer, the Death Corps seem almost inhuman in their fatalistic approach to warfare. But to Orks, the Kriegers put up a proper fight. They make the Orks work for their victories. Reports exist of Ork war bosses deliberately seeking out Death Corps regiments because they know the Humies in the gas masks will give them a good scrap. Third, having proper Orky aesthetics helps tremendously. This might seem superficial, but appearances matter to Orks in ways that reflect their cultural values. Certain colors carry meaning in Ork society. Red makes things go faster, not metaphorically, but literally, through the psychic power of Ork belief. Black represents toughness and strength, particularly when associated with the Goth clan. When Yarrick wore black with red trim, when he grafted an Ork power claw to his arm, when he replaced his lost eye with a bionic that glowed red, he was, probably accidentally, adopting Orky aesthetics. The Orks saw a Humie boss who dressed like a Goth and carried proper Orky weapons. This made him look the part of a worthy opponent. Similarly, the bigger and more impressive your weapons, the more respect you gain. Orks love big guns and massive close combat weapons. They build their entire war machines around the principle that bigger is better, that more Daka is always the solution, that weapons should be so oversized they border on impractical. When they see enemies wielding similarly impressive armaments, particularly if those weapons are used with skill and enthusiasm, it registers as a positive quality. A space marine with a thunder hammer and storm shield, smashing through Ork ranks, looks like he is taking the fight seriously. A guardsman with a laser gun hiding in a trench looks like he is trying to avoid the fight entirely. Fourth, cunning helps, but only certain kinds of cunning. Orks respect what they call brutal cunning, or cunning brutality, depending on which of their gods they favor. This describes tactics that are clever, but still involve getting stuck in personally. Ambushes are great, as long as you spring them and then charge into melee. Flanking maneuvers work, provided you are leading from the front. Strategic withdrawals to lure enemies into traps show intelligence worthy of respect. What Orks do not respect is being sneaky without the fighting to back it up. Pure stealth, long-range assassinations, poison, subterfuge, these mark you as a git who is too scared to fight properly. The difference is subtle, but important. Yarrick's tactical genius was respected because he used it to create better battles, not to avoid combat. He would fall back to better positions, yes, but then he would stand and fight from those positions. He would lure Orks into kill zones, but he would be there in the kill zone with his soldiers, weapons firing. His cunning enhanced the fighting rather than replacing it. Fifth, surviving against impossible odds creates its own form of entertainment value. Orks admire toughness, and repeatedly surviving battles that should have killed you demonstrates exceptional toughness. Yarrick survived Gazkul's personal attention multiple times. He lost limbs and kept fighting. He was left for dead and recovered. Each time he emerged from apparently certain death, his legend grew among the Orks. They began to believe that he could not be killed, which made fighting him even more exciting because they wanted to be the one who finally brought him down. This creates a perverse incentive structure. The more you survive Ork attacks, the more interested they become in fighting you again. Each narrow escape makes you more legendary, which makes you more valuable as entertainment, which makes them more likely to capture you alive for future fights, rather than simply killing you. You become trapped in a cycle where your competence at survival ensures that you will never be allowed to escape. Finally, and this is perhaps the most subtle quality, you must seem to enjoy fighting, at least a little. Orks do not understand why anyone would not love combat. They genuinely cannot comprehend fighting as anything other than joyful. When they encounter enemies who fight with grim determination, with dutiful acceptance of their role, with resignation to necessity, The Orks find it confusing. These enemies fight well enough, but they seem so unhappy about it. Where is the joy? Where is the enthusiasm? But when an enemy charges with what looks like genuine battle fury, when they seem to revel in the combat as much as the Orks themselves, something clicks. Here is an opponent who understands. Here is someone who gets it. The Space Wolves chapter, with their loud battle cries and aggressive combat doctrine, often earn this sort of response. The Orks see humies who howl like beasts and charge into melee with apparent joy, and they think, these gits know how to have a proper scrap. You do not actually have to enjoy fighting, of course, but you must seem like you do, or at least like you are not completely miserable about it. Acting terrified, showing visible reluctance, trying to negotiate or plead, these mark you as boring. Fighting with stoic determination is acceptable. Fighting with apparent enthusiasm is better. Fighting with what looks like actual joy, like you might be having fun too, makes you special. When you combine all these qualities, skill in combat, refusal to surrender, proper aesthetics, clever tactics that enhance rather than avoid fighting, exceptional survivability, and apparent enthusiasm for battle, you create the perfect storm of Ork interest. You become someone worth keeping alive, someone worth talking about, someone worth fighting again and again. You become Scumgrod, the favorite enemy, and your life transforms into something both more and less than it was before. The benefits of achieving this status are real, though they come wrapped in terrible costs. Most obviously, Orks will sometimes choose not to kill you when they otherwise would. Ghazghkull released Yarrick from captivity rather than executing him. Other Orks might pull their blows in the final moments of combat, knocking you unconscious rather than delivering a fatal strike. They want you alive for the next fight. This creates a strange form of protection. While Orks are pursuing you specifically because you are entertaining, they are also protecting you from other things that might kill you. An Ork warboss who values you as an opponent will not let some random Ork boy claim the honor of your death. You are a prize to be fought by the boss himself, or at least by his most trusted nobs. Lesser Orks who try to kill you might find themselves on the wrong end of their own leader's displeasure. Moreover, your name spreads through the Ork collective consciousness. You become legend. Orks from warbands you have never encountered know your name and want to test themselves against you. This creates a galaxy-spanning reputation that precedes you everywhere you go. In some ways, this can be strategically useful. Enemy Orks might hesitate before attacking if they recognize you, wanting to inform their boss that a famous opponent has appeared. Lower-ranking greenskins might even flee, wanting to fetch someone more important to fight such a worthy foe. Your survival against Orks also becomes self-reinforcing. The more you survive, the more legendary you become. The more legendary you become, the more valuable you are as entertainment, which means Orks are more likely to capture rather than kill you. You become almost protected by your own reputation, wrapped in a strange bubble where the normal rules of Ork warfare bend around your presence. But these benefits are cold comfort against the horrific costs of Ork attention. The most obvious cost is that you can never rest. Normal Imperial commanders might face Ork raids occasionally, defensive battles when greenskins attack their sector. But when you are entertaining, the Orks come looking for you specifically. They hunt across star systems. They bypass easier targets to reach you. They coordinate assaults specifically designed to draw you out. Your presence becomes a magnet for Ork aggression, endangering not just yourself, but everyone around you. Yarrick could never retire in peace. Even when he stepped away from active duty, the Orks knew where he was. When Ghazghkull returned to Armageddon, he did so partly because that was where Yarrick would be. The Commissar's presence transformed Armageddon into a target, making the Third War inevitable. Every world Yarrick visited, every command he took, became marked by his name, and therefore by Ork interest. He could not hide. He could not escape. The galaxy's most dangerous greenskins would always know where he was and would always come looking for him. This creates impossible strategic situations. do you deploy your valued commanders where they are, needed, knowing that doing so will attract overwhelming Ork attention? Or do you keep them hidden, wasting their expertise to preserve them from being hunted? There is no good answer. Using them draws the enemy. Not using them wastes resources. You are damned either way. The psychological toll must be enormous. Imagine knowing that you can never truly be safe, that your name is spoken around campfires and in Ork settlements across 1,000 worlds, that greenskins are actively searching for you at all times. Every battle might be the one where an Ork warboss shows up specifically to fight you. Every quiet moment carries the threat of Ork commandos sent to capture you alive. Sleep becomes difficult. Planning for the future seems pointless when your future consists entirely of being hunted by creatures who will never stop and never forget. Your relationships suffer. Anyone close to you becomes a target, leverage to be used against you, or simply collateral damage when the Orks come calling. Subordinates die in battles that occur because you attracted Ork attention. Civilians on worlds you visit find themselves caught in wahs drawn by your presence. You become toxic to be around, a danger to everyone who stands near you, through no fault of your own, beyond being too good at your job. The Orks will sometimes capture people important to you as a way to ensure you will come fight them. They are not above using hostages, though not in a conventional sense. They do not threaten to execute captives. Rather, they advertise that they have captured your soldiers or your allies or your friends, knowing that you will come to rescue them because that is what you do. And when you arrive, the Orks have the fight they wanted. Even in captivity, being entertaining offers no real protection. Yes, Gazkul released Yarrick, but that was a specific choice by a specific warlord for a specific purpose. Other Orks might keep you as a permanent prisoner, bringing you out occasionally to fight in their arenas for entertainment or to test their best warriors. You become a living training dummy, forced to fight for Ork amusement until you either die or stop being entertaining enough to preserve. The stories of what Orks do with prisoners they find boring make captivity as an entertaining prisoner seem almost preferable, but only almost. Boring prisoners become slaves, worked to death in Ork mining operations or factories. They are beaten, starved, forced to labor in conditions that kill most humans within weeks or months. Some are eaten. Some are simply killed for fun when the Orks grow frustrated with their weakness. It is a miserable fate, but at least it usually ends relatively quickly. Being entertaining means your captivity lasts longer. You are valuable enough to feed, to keep in reasonable health, to preserve for future use. You might spend years as an Ork captive, brought out to fight whenever your captors want entertainment. Some prisoners in this situation go mad. Others become so brutalized that they are barely human when finally rescued. The psychological damage of being kept as a pet gladiator for Orks who treat you as a favorite toy is difficult to quantify, but it is certainly severe. And if you do escape or get rescued, the cycle simply continues. The Orks that held you will want you back. Word will spread that you are free again. New war bosses will seek you out, wanting to test themselves against the legendary opponent they have heard so much about. Your escape is not freedom. It is just a brief intermission before the next hunt begins. Different factions respond to this attention in different ways, and their responses reveal much about both the factions and the Orks themselves. The Space Marines, with their genetically enhanced physiology and cultural emphasis on honor, often embrace being valued by Orks, at least to a degree. To an Astartes, being recognized as a worthy opponent by any enemy is a form of validation. It proves that they are fulfilling their purpose as the Emperor's finest warriors. Some chapters actively seek out famous Ork warlords, viewing the challenge as a test of their skills and a way to prove their superiority. The Ultramarines approach Ork attention with typical tactical precision. They recognize that being entertaining draws Ork forces to predictable locations, which can be used to control the flow of battle. An Ultramarine commander who knows that Orks will come looking for him specifically can choose the ground for battle, prepare defenses accordingly, and turn Ork aggression into a strategic advantage. This works, to a point, but it requires constant vigilance and perfect execution. One mistake, one lapse in preparation, and the Ork horde overwhelms even the best defenses. The Space Wolves revel in Ork attention. Their culture values personal glory and combat prowess, and being hunted by greenskins who consider them worthy opponents feeds directly into Space Wolf identity. They see Orks as similar to themselves in some ways, warriors who fight for the joy of fighting, who value strength and courage above cunning and subterfuge. A Space Wolf who becomes famous among the Orks wears that fame as a badge of honor, proof that he is a great warrior. Of course, this attitude also gets many Space Wolves killed when their enthusiasm for glorious combat leads them into situations even Astartes' physiology cannot survive. The Imperial Guard approaches the situation with more pragmatism and considerably more dread. A Guard officer who attracts Ork attention knows that this will bring suffering and death to the soldiers under their command. They do not have the advantage of post-human enhancement or power armor. When Orks come hunting for their commander, guardsmen die by the thousands trying to protect them. The burden of knowing that your fame is costing the lives of your soldiers weighs heavily on any commander with a conscience. Some Guard officers request transfer to penal legions or suicide missions, preferring to die on their own terms rather than continue drawing Ork attacks to regular forces. Others embrace their role as Ork bait, using their notorious status to lure greenskin forces into traps that might not work against more cautious enemies. The death cause of Krieg, as mentioned earlier, simply do not care. If Orks want to fight them specifically, fine. The Kriegers will fight until they win or die, same as always. Their fatalistic culture views Ork attention as just another aspect of their endless penance. Chaos forces respond to Ork entertainment value in complex ways. Many Chaos Marines despise being valued by Xenos, viewing Ork respect as an insult to their dark glory. They are warriors of the dark gods, chosen champions of powers beyond mortal understanding. They do not seek or want the approval of fungus-based primitives. When Orks hunt Chaos warbands specifically, the traitor Astartes often respond with excessive brutality, trying to demonstrate their superiority and discourage future attention. But some Chaos forces, particularly those devoted to Horn, understand Ork psychology better. Horn values strength and martial prowess regardless of source. A Chaos warlord who attracts Ork attention is, in the Blood God's view, simply a successful warrior drawing appropriate challenges. Fighting and defeating entertaining Orks can earn Khorne's favor, turning what seems like a disadvantage into a potential advantage. Of course, losing to said Orks brings only death and failure, so the risk remains high. Other Xeno species find themselves in similar situations, though their responses vary dramatically. The Eldar, with their speed and tactical flexibility, try to avoid becoming entertaining in the first place. They strike from ambush and disappear before the Orks can properly engage, preferring to be frustrating rather than fun. This sometimes works, but it also risks angering certain Ork clans who will dedicate additional resources to hunting down the sneaky gits who refuse to fight properly. The Tau have perhaps the worst possible approach to being entertaining, because their entire military doctrine revolves around avoiding close combat in favor of superior ranged firepower. To Orks, the Tau are the ultimate example of cowards who refuse to fight properly, always shooting from a distance and retreating before proper melee can be joined. While individual Tau warriors can become entertaining through unexpected displays of close combat skill, the faction as a whole rarely earns Ork respect. The Greenskins fight Tau because they are enemies, and because the challenge of getting close enough to crump them provides its own entertainment. But they do not value Tau as worthy opponents in the way they value others. Tyranids present a special case, because they are perhaps the only major faction that completely confuses Orks when it comes to the concept of entertainment. Tyranids do not have individual warriors with personalities and reputations. They are a collective consciousness, each organism a tool used by the hive mind and then discarded. You cannot become entertaining to Tyranids because there is no you on their side to be entertained. They do not care about your reputation or your skills. They simply assess whether you are a threat and respond with appropriate bioforms. But Tyranids do entertain orcs in a way. Fighting them provides a constant challenge, an endless variety of strange and dangerous creatures to crump, and battles where the enemy never retreats or surrenders. From the orc perspective, Tyranids are great enemies specifically because they strip away all the social complexities. There is no negotiation, no posturing, no politics, just pure, simple violence on a massive scale. Many orcs love fighting Tyranids for exactly this reason. The fact that the Tyranids do not reciprocate or even understand the concept of entertainment is irrelevant to orc enjoyment. Beyond the famous examples of Yarrick and Tusker, the annals of Imperial history contain numerous other cases of individuals who became entertaining to orcs and paid various prices for that distinction. These lesser-known stories illustrate the range of experiences that can follow from earning greenskin attention. Captain Arlo Kane of the 23rd Varden Rifles became famous among orcs in the Mordant sector after successfully defending a mining colony against a War, led by warboss Urgok the Unstoppable. Kane's creative use of mining explosives and tactical retreats through the colony's tunnel system frustrated the orcs for 3 weeks before Imperial reinforcements arrived. Urgok survived the battle and immediately began asking after the Humi boss, who made such a good fight. For the next 5 years, Urgok's Wach seemed to follow Kane's regiment across the sector, attacking whatever world the Vardens defended. Kane was killed during the defense of Hive Primus on Mordant 4, buried under rubble when an orc stomper collapsed a building. Urgok reportedly sulked for weeks afterward, angry that his favorite enemy died to stupid falling rocks rather than in proper combat. Commander Thrace of the Imperial Navy earned orc attention through void combat prowess. During the Battle of the Kalos Cluster, her aggressive boarding actions and willingness to ram orc vessels made her a legend among greenskin freebooters. For years afterward, orc pirate fleets would hunt for the Ram Lady, hoping to capture her ship and test themselves against her personally. Thrace survived multiple such encounters, but her executive officers suffered a mortality rate 3 times higher than normal, as orcs targeted her flagship specifically. She eventually died of old age, still in service, having spent 30 years dodging orc attention. The unnamed commissar of the Harakoni Warhawks drop troops became entertaining almost by accident. During a combat drop onto an orc-held world, his grav chute failed and he plummeted directly into an orc mob, landing feet first on the head of a knob. Somehow surviving the impact, he emptied his bolt pistol into surrounding orcs, used his power sword to dispatch 2 more, and then was knocked unconscious by a lucky blow. The orcs, impressed by both his entrance and his fighting spirit, kept him alive. He spent 6 months as their captive before escaping during a Space Marine assault. By the time he returned to Imperial lines, the orcs called him Da Falin Git, and several war bosses offered significant rewards for his recapture. He requested and received assignment to a different war zone entirely, far from any worlds where his unintentional fame might cause problems. Sister Superior Dominica of the Order of Our Martyred Lady earned lasting orc enmity and respect through zealous application of flamers. Her tactics were simple but effective. Close to melee range, burn everything, accept no surrender, show no fear. The orcs loved it. Here was a Humi who understood that proper fighting meant getting close and personal. The fact that she was burning their boys to death was almost secondary to how enthusiastically she did it. After she burned an entire orc warband to death in their own camp, the surviving orcs made her a priority target. She died 3 years later, surrounded by greenskins, still swinging her chainsword after her flamer ran out of promethium. The orcs that killed her reportedly gave her a proper Bernie funeral out of respect, which for orcs is quite an honor. These stories, and countless others like them, play out across the galaxy constantly. Some last years, some only months. Some end in death, some in transfer to other war zones, a few in retirement, though never in true peace. Each illustrates the fundamental truth. Being entertaining to orcs changes everything about your service to the Imperium. You become marked, targeted, hunted. Your life expectancy drops even as your fame grows. You save lives through your skill while costing others through the attention you draw. The question inevitably arises, is there any way to escape orc attention once you have it? The answer is complicated and generally unsatisfying. You cannot simply stop being entertaining. Your reputation already exists in the collective orc consciousness. War bosses already know your name. The stories are already being told. You cannot unmake yourself as legend. Some attempt to fake their death, staging elaborate scenarios where it appears they fell in battle. This sometimes works for a time, allowing them to serve elsewhere under different names or in different roles. But orcs have surprisingly long memories when it comes to worthy opponents. Years or even decades later, an orc who witnessed your death might see you again and recognize you, blowing your cover. The word spreads quickly after that, and suddenly you're entertaining again, with the added bonus of having tried to escape, which makes the orcs even more interested. Others accept their fate and try to use it productively. If orcs will hunt you anyway, you can choose where and when they find you. This allows for some strategic flexibility. You become the bait in elaborate traps, the focal point around which defensive strategies are built. The Imperium recognizes your value in this role and structures deployments accordingly. You become a weapon specifically designed to attract and channel orc aggression, which is useful if deeply unpleasant for you personally. Some few manage to kill the specific orc that finds them most entertaining, and if that orc has not widely shared your name with other war bosses, the attention might die with them. This is rare, because entertaining enough to be valuable usually means you are famous across multiple warbands. But occasionally, you might earn the specific interest of one war boss who keeps you as a personal obsession. Killing that war boss ends the focused attention, though you may still face normal orc aggression based on your general reputation. The most reliable escape is simply dying for real. When you fall in battle and stay dead, the orcs eventually move on to other opponents. They will tell stories about you, sure, but those stories become history rather than current events. New enemies arise to entertain them. Your legend persists, but your actual persecution ends. Small comfort, but for some who live under constant orc attention, death might genuinely seem like a relief. All of which brings us to the final, darkest aspect of being entertaining to orcs. What happens when you are captured, and the orcs want to keep you indefinitely? Because while Ghazghkull released Yarrick for strategic reasons, and while some orcs view killing their favorite enemies as the ultimate culmination of their rivalry, others prefer to keep their entertainment close at hand, available whenever they want a good fight. Orc slavers exist, though slavery in greenskin culture is not quite the same as in human societies. Orcs enslave humans and other species primarily for labor, forcing captives to work in mines, factories and workshops that supply the War with resources and crude equipment. These slaves live short, brutal lives, beaten and starved, and worked until they die from exhaustion or accident or deliberate cruelty when they are no longer useful. But entertaining prisoners receive different treatment. Not better treatment necessarily, but different. They are fed adequately, kept in reasonable physical condition, even given medical attention after injuries. The orcs want them healthy enough to fight, after all. They are brought out periodically to battle in makeshift arenas, fighting other prisoners, or particularly ambitious orc boys looking to test themselves. They might be forced to train orcs in tactics or combat techniques, beating into orc skulls whatever clever tricks made them entertaining in the first place. This can last years, even decades, for particularly valued prisoners. The psychological impact is devastating. You are kept as a pet, a toy, something the Orks own and use for their amusement. Whatever dignity you once possessed erodes under the constant humiliation of being entertainment. You fight because refusing means beatings or starvation. You perform because the alternative is worse. And through it all, you know that escape is nearly impossible, that rescue is unlikely, that this might be your existence until you finally die. Some prisoners break mentally, becoming hollow shells that mechanically fight when commanded, but show no initiative or personality. The Orks usually kill these broken prisoners, disgusted by how boring they have become. Others turn feral, their sanity fracturing under the strain until they attack anything that approaches with mindless aggression. The Orks find this entertaining too, at least for a while, though feral prisoners rarely last long. They fight recklessly, taking unnecessary wounds, dying in stupid ways that frustrate their captors. A few, very few, manage to escape. They do so through cunning, by waiting for opportunities, by convincing the Orks that they have become too weak or boring to be worth guarding closely. Then they flee during the chaos of battle or when the War moves to new territory. These escapees are never the same. The trauma of extended captivity marks them permanently, even if they return to Imperial service, even if they are welcomed as heroes for surviving such ordeal. They carry the psychological scars forever. And sometimes, in the darkest cases, prisoners who are entertaining become entertaining in a different way. They give up. They stop fighting. They become what the Orks want them to be, accepting their role as permanent entertainment because the alternative, constant futile resistance, is too exhausting to maintain. These prisoners might live longest of all, serving their Ork captors faithfully, fighting in their arenas, training their warriors, becoming trusted enough to move relatively freely within the War camp. They are collaborators, in a sense, though it is hard to judge them harshly for doing whatever necessary to survive. The Imperium has complex policies regarding entertaining prisoners who are rescued or escape. On one hand, these are heroes who survived impossible circumstances, who endured what would break lesser humans, who maintained their usefulness to the enemy which kept them alive. They deserve honor and recognition. On the other hand, they are liabilities. Their presence draws Ork attention. Their psychological damage might make them unreliable in future combat. Their knowledge of Ork camps and tactics might have been extracted under duress, making it potentially tainted. Some are welcomed back into service with full honors. Others are quietly transferred to non-combat roles, their combat days considered finished. A few are interrogated extensively by the Inquisition, suspected of Xenos corruption or collaboration even when no actual betrayal occurred. The mere fact of surviving extended Ork captivity makes you suspicious in some circles, as if there must be some explanation beyond luck and toughness for your continued existence. Perhaps the strangest aspect of all this is how being entertaining to Orks sometimes creates a twisted form of shared understanding. Not friendship, exactly, not even mutual respect in any conventional sense, but something. Warriors who have fought the same opponent multiple times across years or decades develop a relationship, even when that relationship consists entirely of trying to kill each other. They learn each other's patterns, anticipate each other's tactics, recognize each other's capabilities. Yarrick and Ghazghkull reached this point. The warlord genuinely seemed to care, in his limited Ork way, about Yarrick's well-being. He released the Commissar so they could fight again properly. He grew angry when other Orks tried to claim Yarrick as their kill. He shaped his campaigns partly around the joy of matching wits with his favorite enemy. Was this affection? Not as humans understand the term, but it was something more than simple enmity. From Yarrick's perspective, he understood Ghazghkull better than perhaps any other human. He knew how the warlord thought. what tactics he preferred, how to anticipate his strategies. This knowledge came from fighting the same enemy repeatedly across decades. They were bound together by their conflict, each shaping the other's legacy, each becoming famous partly because of their rivalry with the other. Had they met in different circumstances, in a different universe, well, they still would have been enemies. That much was certain. But enemies can understand each other, even respect each other, while still being absolutely committed to each other's destruction. This strange, almost relationship appears in other examples too. Captain Kane and Warboss Urgok never spoke, never acknowledged each other directly, but their tactical choices showed awareness of each other's capabilities. Sister Dominica and the Warboss, who eventually killed her, circled each other for years, each victory raising the stakes, each battle increasing their respective reputations. The Ork, who called the captured commissar Dafalin Git, clearly viewed him with something approaching fondness, even while keeping him prisoner and forcing him to fight for entertainment. These bonds, if they can be called that, represent something profound about the Ork psyche. For all their simplicity, for all their single-minded focus on violence, Orks are social creatures with complex relationships and clear hierarchies. They recognize excellence when they see it, even in enemies. They value strength, courage, and fighting spirit regardless of species. An enemy who displays these qualities transcends being merely a target and becomes something more valuable, a source of genuine entertainment, which to an Ork is among the highest compliments possible. From the human perspective, this is cold comfort. Being valued by Orks means being hunted by them. Being respected by them means never knowing peace. The relationship is fundamentally predatory, with the Orks as predator and you as particularly interesting prey. They might keep you alive longer than they would keep others. They might speak your name with something approaching reverence, but they will still try to kill you, capture you, or make your life miserable, because that is what Orks do. It is what they are. And if you happen to make the process entertaining for them, well, that just makes it all the more enjoyable from their perspective. The Imperium trains its soldiers to fight Orks, to understand their tactics and exploit their weaknesses. But perhaps nowhere in the training manuals does it discuss what to do if you become entertaining. How do you handle being hunted across multiple war zones by greenskins who value you as their favorite opponent? What strategies exist for managing unwanted Ork attention? The answer is that there are no good strategies, only bad options and worse options. You can try to disappoint them, fighting badly enough that they lose interest, but this means letting other humans die, failing in your duty, betraying everything the Imperium stands for. Most cannot bring themselves to deliberately fail, even to escape Ork attention. Your training, your instincts, your oath of service all compel you to fight as effectively as possible, which means continuing to be entertaining. You can request assignment to wars against other enemies, hoping to avoid Orks entirely. But the Imperium has infinite need of competent commanders, and if you are good at fighting greenskins, you will be sent to fight greenskins. Your expertise is valuable. The Imperium does not care about your personal preferences when billions of lives hang in the balance. And besides, Ork wars have a way of appearing where they are least wanted. Even if you transfer to a war zone that should be Ork-free, there is no guarantee the greenskins will not show up anyway, drawn by some unrelated conflict, or simply following rumors of your presence. You can embrace it, using your notorious status to further the Imperium's goals. Many decorated officers have done exactly this, accepting that they will always be Ork bait, and using that to advantage. If greenskins will come looking for you anyway, you can choose favorable ground, prepare elaborate defenses, set traps that turn Ork aggression into an advantage. This works sometimes. It also means accepting that your entire career, possibly your entire remaining life, will be defined by this role. You become the Ork fighter, the greenskin slayer, defined entirely by your entertainment value to the enemy. Whatever you choose, the reality remains. Once you become fun to the Orks, you are marked permanently. Your name enters their collective consciousness and spreads through the like a virus. War bosses you have never met know who you are. Boys who have never seen you fight want the chance to test themselves against you. You become legend, which sounds glorious but is actually horrifying when the legends are being told by creatures who want to hunt you. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and for those unfortunate souls who become entertaining to the Orks, that war becomes deeply, terribly personal. They cannot escape it, cannot retire from it, cannot find peace in a galaxy that offers precious little peace to anyone. They fight, they survive, they become famous for their survival, which makes them more valuable, which makes the Orks hunt them harder, which means they must fight more. An endless cycle of combat and pursuit, of being valued in the worst possible way by the galaxy's most enthusiastic killers. Is there honor in this? Perhaps. The Imperium certainly tries to frame it that way, speaking of chosen warriors whom even the Xenos recognize as exceptional. Propaganda paintings show decorated officers surrounded by defeated Orks, brave heroes who inspire fear and respect even among the enemy. These images conveniently omit the less glorious aspects, the sleepless nights wondering when the next attack will come, the guilt over soldiers who die because your presence drew the enemy, the psychological toll of being hunted for years on end. Is there value in this? Strategically, yes. Officers who draw Ork attention can be used to control enemy movement, to predict where attacks will fall, to prepare defenses accordingly. The Imperium is ruthlessly practical, and it will use every advantage available, including commanders whose notoriety makes them tactical assets. But the personal cost to those commanders is rarely discussed in strategic planning sessions. They are tools, however valuable, and tools exist to be used. Is there anything positive about being entertaining to Orks? It is hard to say. You live longer than you might otherwise, spared by enemies who want to fight you again. You achieve a form of immortality, your name remembered by both Imperial records and Ork legends. You test yourself against some of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy and prove yourself worthy through simple survival. These are not nothing, but they are cold comfort when you are being hunted across the stars by creatures who view your existence as the galaxy's finest entertainment. In the end, being entertaining to Orks is perhaps the strangest curse the 41st Millennium can offer. Not immediate death like facing Tyranids, not corruption like encountering chaos, not the clean oblivion of fighting Necrons. Instead, it is a curse of recognition, of being seen and valued by an enemy in ways you never wanted. It is the curse of being good enough at your job that the enemy wants you to keep doing it, forever, for their amusement. It is the curse of being hunted by an enemy that genuinely, in their own, twisted way, appreciates you. If you find yourself in combat against Orks, fight well but not too well. Be competent but not exceptional. Win your battles, but do not make the Orks enjoy losing to you. Above all, do not stand out. Do not become memorable. Do not give them reason to talk about you around their campfires and in their war camps. Because once they start talking about you, once your name spreads through the once you become known as someone who provides a proper scrap, your life is no longer entirely your own. You become their favorite enemy, their prized opponent, their scumgrod. And in being valued by the Orks, you lose something precious that you can never reclaim, the ability to simply be left alone. This is what happens when Orks think you are fun. This is the price of being entertaining to creatures who exist only for entertainment through violence. This is the fate that awaits those unfortunate enough to be too good at fighting greenskins, too skilled at surviving their attacks, too memorable to be forgotten. It is a fate worse than simple death, because it is a fate that never ends until death finally claims you. And even then, even in death, the Orks will remember. They will tell stories about the Humiboss, or the pointy-eared Git, or the armored Beaky, who gave them such good fights. Your legend persists among the very enemies who hunted you, a final indignity that outlasts your mortal life. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And for those who become entertaining, there is only one war, repeated endlessly, personal and unrelenting. It is the war against enemies who respect you enough to never let you go, who value you too much to let you rest, who find you too entertaining to simply kill and move on. It is the war of being fun to the Orks, and it is a war that only ends when you do. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Warhammer 40k's most uniquely terrible fates, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations of the lore. What other aspects of Orc psychology would you like to see covered? What other factions have similar relationships with their enemies? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, may you fight well enough to survive, but not so well that you become entertaining. In the grim darkness of the far future, anonymity is a blessing few recognize until it is gone.